Morning everyone. I want to take a moment just to talk about the differences between progressive overload and slipping into overtraining with a visual representation on here. Now by progressive overload I mean correctly structured and balanced training with the appropriate load to recruit particular physiological adaptations over a mesocycle of training. And when we're talking mesocycles, we're talking usually a period of 4 to 6 weeks, but that can be different depending on firstly what we're working on and secondly the individual athlete. Overtraining is when the load or stress is inappropriate, usually too high. Well, with overtraining, always too high, and the effects and detraining effects that can have. So what I want you to do is think of this top line here as your quote unquote fitness, okay, your current level. And what we look to do within a mesocycle of training is we look to stress an athlete with load. So intensity and duration are your two main considerations there. And towards the end of that mesocycle, we look to reduce the intensity and the duration. Maybe we have a rest and test week where we look at some of the metrics. And over that period, at the end of the mesocycle, the athlete recovers above the previous baseline. So here is your new baseline. And this continues mesocycle after mesocycle. Can't draw the lines. So as you can see, our fitness is increasing over these periods, okay? What tends to happen with especially self-coached athletes is they get in this mentality that more always equals more. So the harder I work, the fitter I'll become. And yes, properly managed, as per this previous example, more and correct and appropriate load will recruit the required adaptations and drive and improve fitness. What tends to happen with overtraining is the athlete or the coach uses too much load, too much stress, and then we get into an unrecoverable situation. So we may only recover back to this baseline. What can sometimes happen at this point, so we've done a big block of training, used inappropriate load, too much intensity, too much duration, is we don't give ourselves adequate recovery. So our fitness is then not improving. Sometimes we see athletes at this point do an event, an FTP test, go and run a time trial, and their performances have remained static because of inappropriate load. What then does sometimes happen with athletes is they use even more load to try and rectify this plateauing of fitness. And this cycle, they actually detrain and recover to a point of fitness below where they were. The worrying thing is as this cycle of overtraining continues, again, there might be an FTP test, there might be a time trial performed by that athlete at this point, their performance actually dips because of the inadequate recovery, and then they're tempted to use even greater stress, and then we don't recover at all. And by that, I mean we end up injured, or we end up so fatigued that we then have to rest for a protracted period of time. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is that load, correctly managed with adequate recovery, will drive fitness. Too much intensity, too much duration, too much overall load, or inadequate rests. So the other trap we see people fall into is ignoring cycles and just continuing to stress. Again, this can lead to injury or fatigue or prolonged recovery periods, meaning interrupting your training. Progressive overload, good. Overtraining or under resting, bad. Hope that makes some sense, and I hope you're not caught in an overtraining cycle. If load and management of load is something that you're struggling with, drop us a message, drop us a DM, and we'd be very happy to help you out with it.